welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. This is the place where we take a no bullshit look at life's little lessons. Here, together, we find the spiritual glory in even the most wicked hard story. This is a journey from fear back to love and how we can find our greatest strength and happiness in some of the most unlikely places. I believe that if you're willing to change your mind, you can totally change your life. So, are you ready to rewrite your story and choose to live free? Let's do this.
The dynamic duo is back.
It's so funny you just said that. Hi, I'm Karen Kenney, and this is
Bill Baren.
Yeah, so it's funny because I just did a Instagram story, and one of the little gifts, the little picture things, I put us on there, and then there's little Batman and Robin running around above our heads. You'll have to go check it out.
That.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. And there's really something that's been bubbling up for me that I want to talk about.
Awesome. And here's the fun part. I have no idea what it is. So I'm like, where are we going today, BB? What's happening?
It's funny. In some of our other episodes, I didn't know where we were going this time. You don't know where we're going, but we will know when we get there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I had this really interesting experience. I know you and I have pretty radically different tastes in music. And so I was at a DJ concert, which is kind of like
like house music, right?
Yeah, it's trance, but it's like an oxymoron, right? Like a guy playing music, but like acting like he's in a concert. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For those of you who can't see, Karen is bobbing her head left to right, up and down, all kinds of sideways.
Hey, I used to go to some raves back in the day. I can dig some house music.
Yeah, so I was at this place, and there's 7,000 to 10,000 people, and I've got my eyes closed, and I'm listening to the music. I'm loving it. I was at this Armin van Buuren concert. Really like the guy. I think he's I think at least on 3 or 4 of his songs that he's produced, it really is some sort of a downloaded instrumental from the divine. It's just so miraculous. And, I'm enjoying myself, and like this wave comes over me, and I'm like, oh my God, I am this insignificant speck in the universe. And I found so much freedom in that sort of realization, but it wasn't this realization. It was like a visceral experience of knowing that. And I'm open my eyes, and I look at Armin van Buuren up there on the stage with his arm in the air, just like owning it. He was like owning it, right? Like he's not even dancing. He just has his arm up in the air in this iconic pose, and he holds it for like 30 seconds. And I'm like, he is just like there. And then the entire energy of the whole room is focused on him. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, God, the difference between him and me in this moment is that I am fully aware of how insignificant I am. Mm-hmm. At the same time, he's fooling himself into thinking that he is significant. Right? Because I've been in that place. I've been on stage in front of 1,000 people. I still am, but I no longer have the illusion that I'm that significant in the grand scheme of the universe. And there was a lot of, I don't even know how to say it, like freedom and like release out of knowing that, right? And then it really got me into thinking of how much energy we humans spend on trying to be special, trying to show our significance, and how, I don't even know how to say it, like how anti-productive it is in the grand scheme of things. And then it got me thinking about social media, how that entire world is about showing significance, and how much energy we place on showing significance and showing how we stand out, where everywhere else on our planet, every other living organism other than humans, our job is to blend in with the ecosystem that we're a part of, not stand out.
Dude, I'm just keeping my big fat mouth shut till you're done with this thought, because I'm just like over here, preach. I got so many thoughts on this, but so finish your what, like, yeah.
Yeah, and I could just feel how much energy loss, how much suffering we humans have created for ourselves in the act of standing out versus the act of blending in, and how on some level, and this is going to sound strange, but on some level, this act of standing out is a violent act. And it just, you know, I came back and I'm looking at social media and going, oh my God, what is this racket?
It's still, I call it a racket all the time.
And then, right, but I'm still kind of playing along, but in a very different way, right?
Yes.
And so since then, I really looked at it from the perspective of not what do I do to stand out and get noticed, but what is it that I'm curious about, and what is it that I actually want to share just for the hell of it, right?
Yep.
But is that, like, for those people that want to build their business using social media, is that a viable option, right? If you do that, what winds up happening, right?
Yeah.
So there's a you know, as far as more of the metaphysical aspect of this is very clear.
Yes.
But as far as how to, you know, from a marketing perspective,
Yes.
it's
Well, the whole time you're talking about that, I said, oh, there's so many layers here, right?
yeah.
And I think, and it's so funny you said this, because after this talk, I have to record my my podcast for next week. And one of the possible topics was going to be called separation, specialness, and suffering.
Oh boy, there we go.
So I swear to God, this is how I know. I'm like, oh, spiritual team on the job. Here we go. And so, yeah, like, you know, when you say it's a violent act, this is one of the things that like really popped out for me. So from A Course in Miracles perspective, you know, the world, quote unquote, the world only exists because we wanted to be special so bad. And we actually believe we created the world because we were successful in killing God, right? So it's just like, now we're the new God. So everything in this world, and I'll just come at it just because you touched on the marketing point. Well, wait, let me just dip my toe in the metaphysical thing from the way that I experience it. I 100% agree. Like, I can imagine that whole scene, like, as a storyteller, the visual in my mind, like I could feel like I could feel the music, the energy, the bodies, just like him up there. I can't, like, doing the whole thing. And just what I just think is when you have that moment of realizing, like, I am so insignificant. One part of my body just goes, what a fucking relief. I can finally relax. It's like, I don't have to try and be anything, do anything, become anything. Like, I don't have to try and figure out my ideal avatar, my niche, like all this stuff. And I think that's where we're at odds so often, you know, why I think this world can be so challenging. And I think for me, like, I'm just going to personalize it from my point of view, because the whole time I'm listening to you, like, that's how I feel so often. I'm like, oh my God, this social media is a racket. And if one more person tells me, like, I got to find my ideal avatar and like all this, but I'm like, I could give two shits. Not that I could give two shits about the people I want to serve, but like all the stuff, like finding your niche and finding out your uniqueness and what makes you special. Because here's what I know, as soon as you insist on being special, you're gonna suffer. Because what that means is you've been successful in separating yourself from your source, whatever you call that. So it's kind of a mind fuck, it's kind of like this thing where it's like, okay, if I'm having this experience that I'm embodied in the world and I'm here and I'm trying to run a business and I'm trying to help people make a love connection about why they're my people or I'm their person or whatever the thing is, how can we do this? And I remember, because I worked with you in your former program for like 2 years. And we got this huge, at one point we get the big book of marketing, right? And you guys who can't see me right now, it's like 3 inches thick. This sucker, it's like spiral bound. It's like, and you can go through everything. It's like networking, signature talks, like this. And I remember just flipping through that book and having paid, a good investment to work with you and get some of your genius and the other coach's genius, and just feeling like I just flipped through it and I'd be like, nope. Like I didn't want to, like, it's not that it wasn't smart strategy. There are plenty of people who are like, yes, but everything in my body was just kind of resisting. And I was like, I don't want to play this fucking game, man. Like, this just isn't that interesting to me. And so, you guys would say to me, here's your homework. Go out in public and just be yourself. Like, that was my marketing strategy. And I was like, I just wanted to know more than anything, from this piece of it, can I just make a living, and can I do my business in alignment with my values and the things that mattered to me and the truth of myself? Can I make money by just being myself? And I didn't want to do a tap dance, and I didn't want to Cirque du Soleil myself into some funnel. Like, it just doesn't even interest me. And in fact, I was talking to somebody earlier today about memberships. And she's like, I'm doing this membership thing. If you ever want to know about it, how to build a thing. And I remember saying to you one time, hey, I think having a membership would be really cool. And you were like, yeah, but they're a lot of work. And like, we were talking about it. And I just feel like I'm still, Bill Baren, trying to figure out where KK fits into the whole marketing schematic social media thing. And if you look at my social media feed, sometimes it's like, hey, I'm doing this event, but a lot of it is shit that either just makes me laugh or makes me smile, or it lit me up, or it made me think differently, or whatever. I really have no kind of strategy, if that makes sense.
I actually think personally, I think that's the best strategy. Because it's the only thing that gives you energy versus takes energy away.
Yeah.
And I just think that, God, pretending is so exhausting.
Amen.
And as soon as there's a strategy to social media, there are going to be days where you have to pretend. There are going to be days where you have to say something even though you're not feeling it. And there's nothing worse than that. I mean, there are a lot of things worse than that, but it's
a betrayal. It's a betrayal to yourself.
Yeah, it's a betrayal to yourself. And I just think that we're the only species on the planet where somehow there's a faulty design where we can actually betray ourselves. Yeah. No other animal can do it, even if they tried.
Yeah, it's fascinating being the like a furry kid mom, right? I have 6 pets right now, and my 4 dogs, they're all totally different. I mean, the 2 brothers, they share DNA, so they have mannerisms that are often the same. However, I'm like, Buck, I'm like, Buckaroo isn't sitting there going, how can I be more Buckaroo? How can I be the best Buckaroo I can be? How can I get more attention? Like, there's no efforting of, and I get it, they're animals, whatever people say, it's a little bit different, but I see humans it's like performing, pretending, people pleasing, perfectioning, like all these P's that I talk about. And the one thing all those P's do not bring you is peace. I can tell you that, because it is like, it is contortionist level, like, it's like you have to kind of like kill off certain parts of yourself. And for me yesterday, like, I do a podcast a week. I don't batch them. And people are like, so do you have your social media content calendar? And I'm like, oh my God, no. And they're like, do you have your strategy laid out for your launches and all this stuff? And I'm like, no. But yesterday, quote unquote, I was supposed to do a podcast so I could have it queued up for next week. I'm not shitting you. I tried 8 times because it was like, oh, I have to have this ready for my team to do the thing. I go on the first one. I talk for 5 minutes and there's no energy. I'm like, that's not it. That's not the topic. Get rid of that. The next one, I was like, I just kept flubbing up my words over stupid stuff. The next one, I talk for 10 minutes and right in the middle of talking, I just yell, fuck this. And I like, don't do it. The next one, I got 25 minutes in. I was like, you don't, whatever. I literally started talking to myself. I have all these, I was like, by the 8th try, I said, I am clearly not supposed to do one today. And I'm the kind of person, I love to be consistent, but I would have just said, sorry guys, I'm not feeling it this week. There's no content this week because I'm not going to force it. And I was like, I'm willing to try.
But here's the thing. That's the podcast.
Is that, well, you know what's so funny? I almost did a 10-minute podcast where I swear to God, where I said, hey guys, I was going to just do one called, like, you can't force it. Don't force it. Don't force shit. I was like, and I started to record that. And I thought, you're crazy. You're going to do like an 8-minute podcast episode called Don't Force It. And the podcast is about how I couldn't do a podcast. And then I was like, I don't want to waste their time, but maybe I should have done it.
But that's really where meeting yourself where you're at, right?
Yes.
And that, because you're definitely not the only one that's having that experience, but you are having a little bit of a different experience, whereas most people would have forced through it and like made themselves finish. And guess what? It would have been mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, 100%. I couldn't feel myself in it.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not just going to put something out because I'm quote unquote supposed to put something out. And it's why, like, you know, I wake up in the morning every day and it's like, yeah, I mean, you got to have a certain sense of like, you know, what am I doing today? But if I can't feel it, I'm just at that point in my life where, and I've said this to you before, and I don't mean fun in an immature way. Like, oh, if I'm not having fun, I don't mean that. You do the right thing. You go to funerals, you show up, you do your job. I'm not talking about irresponsibility, but I'm not going to do something that just doesn't feel right. Like, I can't make myself do it anymore. I'm like, I just won't do it. I spent so much of my younger years people pleasing. It was a survival skill, you know, literally. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. And one of the main things that I loved about working with you guys in the Big Shift and All Stars and stuff, I said it was one of the first places where I felt like I could totally be myself. And not only that, I was encouraged to totally be myself. Like, you guys gave me so much permission to break the rules, to not do it. Like, yeah, this is all in the book, but what do you want to do? And you question me. And it's one of the things about, can I be in, and this word is so overused, I don't even want to say it, but it's true. Can I be in authenticity? Can I be in genuineness? Can I be in the truth of what I'm trying to do here? And I'm just not willing to, like, I don't even, and you might laugh at this or say you're crazy, you should figure this out. But there are so many people who say, go out to your quote unquote tribe, go out to your people, ask them what they want, find out what their problems are, and then create that. And I'm always like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to create what I want to create. And then if people are attracted to that, and if it's a good fit, I trust that somehow they will find me. But maybe that's a crazy way to do business. I don't know.
It's not a crazy way to do business, as long as you are co-creating.
Bingo.
Because if you're co-creating, that it's inherently they're going to want it, right? Like they don't have to be there for you to co-create with them, right? It's not like getting people in the room, you co-creating with them. But when you can bring somebody with you, like I remember when I was producing music. That's how I was producing music. I was like, bring somebody along with me, like emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
and then have an intuitive dialogue with them. If I do this, are you going to like it? Right? Like, what would happen when we do this together? Right? And then the more connection I had, the more the co-creation became something beautiful.
So just for the listeners at home who may not know you as well or know exactly what you mean, when you say co-creating with another individual and bringing them along, do you mean in your mind, or do
Yeah.
you mean there was actually, so there wasn't a person, in the room with you? It was like you had a particular person in mind that you were like vibing with or whatever, or creating with.
And I can feel them. I knew who they were, like all of it, and I was creating it with them. Like if I did that, what would be the reaction? If I did this, what would be the reaction? And so it's like I'm much more of a co-creator than a creator. That's why I do well in my group mentorship calls and live experiences, because it's like when presented with something that I can play off of.
Yes.
Something that magical comes out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by myself, I just don't really care all that much.
So it's interesting because when you said co-creation, the first thing that I thought of is I always think of it like more kind of like that divine thing. So for me, when I'm tuning in and I'm just saying, like, in the morning when I start my day, have me go where you would have me go, have me do what you would have me do, whatever, I'm really deeply listening. And part of that is in A Course in Miracles, I'm paraphrasing, there's a line that basically says that when you have chosen wrongly, and you will know because your mood will tell you so. It says, and I'll just tell you what it says. People can use the language, and it says, and Christ gently calls to us, my brother, choose again. And so that's kind of the experience with like the podcast. Like I knew how I was feeling, and I felt kind of like this pressure of I deliver this thing every week, so I need to do it. Doesn't matter if you're not really like sometimes I'm like, okay. And then it was just like literally like my co-creative team was like, not today, motherfucker, like back away from the microphone. And I was like, okay. And I wrote to my team and I said, hey, look, I tried 8 times. It's not happening today, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Like that's just how I'm rolling. And I'm kind of taking the pressure off it. I mean, there are times when I feel very, I always say, like, if I'm going to post anything, I have a set of guidelines for myself. And I said, it has to either elevate, educate, enlighten, or entertain. And if it doesn't check one of those boxes, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm either sharing it because, like I said, it moved me, it made me laugh, or it made me excited, or I have something that I want to say. I'm not going to create stuff just to create it. And to also, I think what the heartbeat of this whole conversation about, and you can disagree totally because it was the beginning of your conversation, you kicked it off, but this comes down to ego versus spirit. That's all it is to me. Like, which point of view am I coming from? And the ego demands your specialness. But as soon as you demand to be special, you will suffer in some way because you're separating yourself. And whether it's from the herd, like the animals, the one that wanders off in the desert isn't going to survive. You know what I mean? But we're being asked constantly, hang your shingle, be unique. What's your unique properties? Who's your ideal avatar? It's like specialness in this world. And so it's like, well, how do we create especially the entrepreneurial world? How do we put our stuff out there without like going like, look at me, I'm the expert, I'm the master, I'm this, you should hire me because of that. It's like, there's a part of it where sometimes I stand back and I'm like, these exact words, this is such a racket.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Especially being an eco guy, I'm having kind of an interesting experience with products, where products seem a lot more pure than services. It's like, here's this product, it's tangible, you can touch it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I want to clutter the world with more stuff, but at the same time, there seems to be some different kind of purity, about it, right? Like, ooh, I stink. Well, what if I had an aluminum-free deodorant,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, it somehow that seems more pure to me, because there is no illusion that that deodorant is me.
Right. because, because so, yes. Um, right, because it's this thing, isn't it? This thing, especially in the coaching world, like you start to believe, like, don't believe the hype. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because so many people confuse their business or their services with themselves.
Yeah.
And then their success and their value and their worth. But it's like you said, like, well, if I have this soy candle or whatever, it's like, here you go. Like, that was one of the fun things. I mean, even though yoga was a service, like having a studio where people just came in, I'm like, I look back and I'm like, that was so simple then. To just have a place and the product was the yoga class. And I'm like, and I knew how to do that. And I'm like, stepping into, again, accidental entrepreneur. Even as a yoga studio owner, I was an entrepreneur, but I always just was like, I'm self-employed. I didn't have grandiosity around this thing, right? But now it's just like, I see people, I even get exhausted watching what's happening on social media. I just sit back and I think, this is a shit show. Now, I'm not saying some beautiful things don't come out of it. Some great art, some great connections. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's kind of neutral. You can use it. It's a tool you can use however you want to use it. But I see the insecurity, desperation, and lack of a better word, performing that goes on there.
Yeah. Well, whatever we can do to at least stop the madness in our own on our own feeds.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, I say to my clients all the time, like, try to live intentionally with as much attentionally and intentionally as much as you can. And if you're posting something, know why you're posting something. If you're doing something or making a choice, know why you're doing it. Like, you have to know yourself. You have to know your motivation. You have to know why you're doing it. And for me, it's like, I honestly say, like, we've talked about this before, like, we never really got into it, but we talked about money before. And I think if money wasn't an issue, like, I think to myself, well, if I didn't have a business and I didn't need to let people know, quote unquote, about my business or my services, how much would I actually be on social media?
What's the answer?
Probably not that much. I think that I would still probably share, like, haha videos, like, oh, check this out, cute donkey, or whatever it is, right? And I might say, oh my God, my friend has a book reading. I might just totally use it for love shout outs. I don't know that I would even, I kind of miss the old days. We're around the same age. So I think about back when we were kids. The only way you could get in touch with somebody, if you wanted to hang out with them, connect with them, co-create with them, play, whatever, is you either went to their house and knocked on the door, or you called. And even back then, you could choose to pick up the call or not, because we didn't have answering machines. So you would be at home, and like, this was the sanctuary, like you were in your home, and you could choose if you wanted to come out. And then they could see you at school. That was another way. And then it was like answering machines, and then it was beepers. And then it was cell phones, social media, like whatever. And like right now, like I can be in my house and I can still feel the energetic entryways to contacting me, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, on my phone, text message, email, call me, box me. And now I just feel like there's a constant almost ask to come outside of your insignificance.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's like, come outside. I'm like, man, on some level, before you went into the insignificance part, on some level, it's like we're always outside, right? There is no sanctuary. There is no place to be able to have, because the outer world is so loud.
Oh, yeah.
That the inner world is becoming quieter and quieter. And it takes a lot more energy and effort to actually tune in and to listen and be with it.
And it's why, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm, I don't know. I'm feeling in this place of like, okay, what do we do? Like, it wasn't the nature of the conversation before, but now it feels like it. Like, what do we do? How do we act from here on out in a way that allows what's truly important to have a bigger significance in the day-to-day activities of our lives?
100%. And I think for me, that's why, the one of the first things I try to do with my clients is to establish a daily spiritual practice, whatever that ritual might be for them, because that time going within, like the way that my meditation teacher would have described it, he calls it installing like internal stabilizers. And so that's what those, whether it's meditation, prayer, mantra, dance, whatever people do, journaling. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to God or to the source or to love, whatever you want to call it. So for me, it's like, but taking that time first thing in the morning to go in is the difference between going out into the world and inspiring in some way or inflicting yourself, on other people. So I mean, that for me is non-negotiable. Like, I really know that I need that. And I also know that you have to know yourself, right? So what might be the choices that I might make to show up as my most genuine, authentic, loving, whatever, compassionate self might look different for other people. But I know that I need quiet time. I need time with books. I need to have deep conversations. Hence why we have like this dynamic duo thing we're doing is, I never use this phrase, but the kids use it. It gives me life, So I'm looking for the things that, I guess I would say that, just make me feel more light so I can be the light that I am, So I don't want to participate in a lot of nonsense anymore. It's just not that interesting to me.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I have a self-care checklist. It's an actual piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And that, every 3 or 4 weeks I look at it and I change it, add some things, subtract some things. And the one constant that's been on it is that no communication until my morning routine is completely done.
Mm-hmm.
Until I've done my meditation breathing, until I've done stretching, until I've done exercise, until I've done putting nutritious, healthy things in my belly, until I eat a few other things, until I put in when I'm going to be walking that day and what meeting that I'm having I can actually do while walking. And until I put in the top 3 personal priorities for me, and I have these 3 categories. I don't know if I've ever told you, it's breezy, It's like something that like it requires almost no energy. Like today in the breezy category
Yeah.
is to put yesterday's laundry away. That's breezy,
Yeah.
right? And then there's important.
Mm.
And for me, the important is some internal inquiry,
Yes.
right? And yeah, and then there's choose me, something that's often could be called indulgent, or something that like would be like, I don't know, like internally decadent.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love that.
that could be like a bath,
Hmm.
right? Or
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, man. I think that part of it for me too is to, I love the, I thought you were going to say easy breezy. I was like, what's the other one going to be? So
cheese.
I love that, but I think it's so important. And I think, you know, the way that self-care is so often talked about, it's not just about like pedicures and manicures. Like there's so much more to it. And I think part of what also is really important for me is more and more and more and more and more. And it kind of might be a perfect place to kind of wrap the conversation up, is that when you talk about this insignificance, right? It's like, it's this thing about realizing that the older I get, I'm like, on some level, this might not be great for marketing for my business, but on some level, I recognize that I don't know shit, man. And I'm just staying so curious. I just want to keep meeting the world and myself with more and more curiosity, with less and less judgment, with more just like this open-heartedness of like, yeah, like it doesn't really matter. Like I laugh at myself sometimes. I'm like, oh, you have these podcasts and you have all these opinions and you give advice and you mentor people. And on some level, I think to myself, like, and none of it really matters.
Yeah. Yep. You actually came to the definition of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like when we believe that our work somehow takes on heroic proportions of significance. Oh my God. That's a Kool-Aid that you should put back in the box and go to the store and return it. Right?
Don't mix that picture of significance Kool-Aid, right? Because it's, I mean, it's so true, because unless you're omnipotent, like unless you have the total universal view, like I always say, like, man, just help me to do the best with what I have. Like, but what do I know? Like, I think about it all the time. Like, all I can do is trust the intuition and the guidance that I feel in my body to share, when to shut up, when to speak, what to say, how to say it, like that. I'm like, but at the end of the day, like I swear to God, I said to my sweetie like 4 days ago, if I were to drop dead tomorrow, I'm like, you'd give a shit. I go, these guys would care. They love me. I go, handful of people, a couple of people might be like, ah, KK, we loved her. I go, but really, I'm a blip. I just said this to him. I'm a blip on the screen. And it's kind of fun in a way to think about that. Like, you know, I left, what's the mark I'm going to leave? Like we talk about these legacies, right? I don't have kids. I'm like, maybe I'll leave a few books behind, whatever. But in the big scheme of things, there's a freedom to think, well, like something like, hey, I came and I danced and I made some music and I wrote some words and I loved the shit out of some people. Like maybe that's enough.
And I will be completely forgotten.
Exactly.
It's like,
That's what I'm saying.
and for some reason, for some people, that would feel excruciating. But I don't know why it feels good to me. And yeah, and this whole concept of legacy.
Let me ask you
Dead. I
what?
don't care. I'm going to be dead. I don't care.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And again, I think it goes back to, to the ego. The only thing that it wants, we've talked about this before, is to be special. And it doesn't care if it makes you special through your arrogance and your superiority and you're the best, or it makes you special through your I'm a piece of shit and I'm no good and I'm not lovable, right? It will use anything. It will take anything. And to the ego, no specialness, to the ego blending in, to the ego just being one with, is terrifying. It means death. And that's why I think it scares people to think I could be gone tomorrow. And how, like we talked about this with the Kobe episode, like it's like you're here, you make an impact, whatever, you do your thing, and then you're just gone. In a few weeks, people move on. Life goes on.
It's true. It's true. So I think it's time to wrap up our podcast of Total Insignificance.
Exactly. We hope that you listen to this and realize that it totally on some level doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And you find complete freedom in that thought.
Exactly. Amazing.
Yep. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KenneYlive. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.